Steve, we had some time overages for the last question. And so I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but the next question, I think, is a 3-minute question. And 3 minutes, but I would just want to give you a heads up. And may I go ahead and just give some advice? Certainly to be concise, but Chris will be taking 13 seconds off of your count.
13?
I know.
Are you sure it wasn't 12?
Bryce, 18 seconds. Tom, 30 seconds. And Cliff, that question, that's actually almost 2 minutes.
That's right. If I'm last, so in fairness to the...
So do we get to add that to ours?
Yeah, so do the other people get to add? Okay, our final question starts with Mr. Wright, and you do have 3 minutes with those changes that Mary Jane suggested. This is Pat McGreevy from the Citizens for Better Calaveras.
Well, you've already, many of you have already made statements about TOT, and now's the time when the question that comes now actually addresses TOT. And so I'd like to express our viewpoint, the volunteers that sit before you. And as we said before, we came together to make Calaveras a better place to live, a better place to visit. And the third is really to build recreation, entertainment, and tourist economies. And when these three are all related into what we look at as an infinite loop. And it goes something like this. The proceeds from the Transient occupancy tax will contribute to the well-being of our county. We want our volunteers to spend less time on fundraising and more time on service to the benefit of our residents. With expanded arts, fair, recreation, and entertainment programs, we provide countywide attractions needed for the Visitors Bureau to compete with our neighboring counties for tourist dollars. We recognize that the Tourist Bureau is underfunded by half compared with that spent in neighboring counties, and the proposed ordinance aims to fix that. With increased tourism comes increased retail business and revenues from sales tax, which benefit the county general fund. And increased tourism will drive our hospitality industry, generating more revenue from the transient occupancy tax to complete the loop. So here's how it works. Parks, I'm going to give you an example. Parks and Rec, right now in the past 2 weeks, has been working with BLM and others to build the Coast to Crest Trail from McCollum Hill up the McCollum River Canyon to Glencoe. Parks and Rec has also partnered with the county to restore Ponderosa Way, which is the only access from Highway 26 to the river from McCollum Hill to West Point. When river access is restored, PG&E will honor its agreement with the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission to install a boat launch on the river, increasing the current whitewater run from 5 to 8 miles, making it one of the longest runs in the Central Sierra. At this point, we have hikers, bicyclists, and equestrians going up the McCollum Coast to Crest Trail, and we have oars, rafts, and kayaks going down the river. In the meantime, the Visitors Bureau is marketing weekend packages for tourists to experience our wild and scenic canyon with a Friday night stay in the 1850s Hotel Leger in McCollum Hill or the Robin's Nest in San Andreas. These tourists can obtain additional information on Calaveras outings for families and seniors that are dog-friendly at the information kiosk outside the main library in McCollum Hill. On Saturday night, the tourist bureau package will take them up Highway 4 to spend their Sunday in the Stanislaus National Forest, up the Highway 4 byway, and an overnight stay in Murphy's. If this is not enough, Marita and I are offering skinny dipping on the Stanislaus River. So, put it all together, move over Yosemite, here we come. My question to you folks, to our candidates, is that you have seen the draft, this is a draft of transient occupancy ordinance, a revision of the current ordinance, which is in county code. And the question to you is, do you support it? And in it, if not, we're most interested in the changes that you would make that would enable you to endorse it. Thank you.
Well, I think I've already addressed it. I strongly support the TOT. It's a great benefit to all of these important community organizations here, as well as the Sheriff's Department too. Will get 20% of the increased revenue coming in, so it's going to help the sheriffs as well. So I think it's just a really win-win for the entire county, and I strongly support and encourage all of you to join on and help get this passed. There is one question I do have as far as the administrative cost. Is there any way of, on the first page there, it talks about 1 through 10, breaks down who's going to get what, and then on the administrative cost, it doesn't have a known number. Is there any way of guessing what would that be, and how much would that cost?
The answer to that's no right now, and county needs to staff that and to come up with some figure that they would be.
And would that then come out of that 100% at that point?
That's the way.
So it wouldn't be any cost to the county, it'd just come out of the TOT?
We don't want it to be a cost to the county.
All right, thank you.
I previously mentioned how I feel about new taxes, and to me it doesn't matter who's paying them, it's still a tax, and we need to be careful about always going to the taxpayers to increase stuff. Everything you're asking for is great. I don't deny that. I think it's wonderful. We would like to have great services everywhere, but we have to live within our means. A couple things I have issue with. Currently, and our current supervisors can correct me if I'm wrong, currently the TOT at 6%, the Visitors Bureau gets 33%, the Sheriff's Department gets 33%, and our Public Works gets 33% to handle the roads. With your new proposal, Visitor Bureau gets 40%. I agree with that. It is an increase from 6% to 10%. So it's a huge increase for them, and I think that's where the money should go, because that's the industry we're taxing if we do it. The Sheriff's Department cut goes back to 20%. If you do the math, the Sheriff's Department's not getting any more money. It works out to, for every $1,000 collected, currently the Sheriff's Department gets about $19.98 or so. With the 20% adjustment to what they get out of the 10%, they get about $20 per 1,000. So there's not much difference there for the Sheriff's Department. So you need to look at the numbers and figure out what we're doing. Another question would be, why are we limiting it to these groups? I'm sure there's other groups in the county that would love to have additional income. It all goes down to me, for me, it all comes down to living within our means and stop going after more taxpayer dollars. But like I said, I would not oppose this if it came to the board to get put on the ballot. I would love the voters to have the final decision. And I think you have wonderful ideas, and I encourage you to work hard and see what you can do with the voters.
I am not in favor of the TOT increase. The last 2 times it was on the ballot, I wrote the ballot argument against it. It failed miserably. If I'm on the board, I'd be very happy to write the ballot argument again against the TOT increase. Nobody has discussed the economic consequences of the TOT increase to the private sector. I would submit that Mr. Wright is absolutely wrong. It's a lose-lose proposition. It's not a win-win proposition. There's been a lot of data to show that if you can have somebody spend the night, they spend much, much more money, 4, 5, 6 times as much money as somebody that's on a day trip. Why do we want to raise the cost to spend the night? If you raise the cost to spend the night, then you will have less people spending the night. That's a huge loser for the lodging associations that are assessing the extra cost of spending the night. And it's a huge loser for the overall economy, because those people that don't spend the night because of increased costs will, in fact, affect the overall economy, because they're going to be day trippers and they're going to spend a heck of a lot less money. And that's why the vacation rentals, the lodging association, all those are so critically important. We want people to spend the night if we're going to have a prosperous tourist economy. I mean, that's absolutely critical. What is before us here is the worst of all worlds, in my opinion. What you're looking at is ballot box budgeting, where a group comes in and says, we want to put something on the ballot and we're going to allocate it to eight different agencies. We don't want to go through the Board of Supervisors. I mean, this has gotten the state into huge problems, all this ballot box budgeting, and this is worse than anything the state has ever proposed as far as an example of ballot box budgeting. I am a very strong advocate of representative government.
30 seconds.
That's what we set up, and you are basically avoiding the whole representative government component of this by not going to any elected officials and just deciding unilaterally as private individuals that you deserve a dedicated tax income stream. You do not. So that completes my comments.
Well, I'm on the opposite spectrum. I think the TOT tax going before the voters, it'll be up to the voters to decide overall. I think it's a great proposal. I think there's been a lot of time and energy and thought given to it. I would certainly support it from my point of view. I have found that when I served on the City of Angels for 8 years on the City Council and served as mayor, during that tenure, we raised our TOT from 6 to 10% and saw no decrease in our stays in our hotel rooms, and it certainly helped our budget in regards to public safety and roads and the general fund at the time. And have not seen that decrease, and I hear these statements that you'll see it plummet. I don't see that. When I've looked at other counties and what they're doing, most are 10% around us. I don't find when people call 1-800-LODGING that the first question out of their mouth is, what is your TOT tax? So I'm all for it, and I applaud the group putting it forward, because if you left it up to government, it wouldn't happen, as it hasn't happened for quite some time. So I applaud the efforts of the community groups in putting this together. It will be up to the voters, and I commend you for putting it out there to the voters and working that angle of getting it onto the ballot and seeking the signatures to do so, and making that your first effort. I would also say that looking at this, what I find as I'm out talking with people in District 4 is that it's the education of the voters. Most don't understand where it is. Most don't understand transient, think it's homeless housing or something along those lines. So there's going to be a tremendous amount of education that I think needs to be done from this group. And one of the things I think you'll be very successful at is many of your organizations are very grassroots, and you know people and you talk to people, and that's what it's going to take to make this successful. And I applaud you for your efforts.
I have 2 minutes now.
Actually, Cliff, you have 1 minute, 5 seconds.
I also applaud this group for bringing it forward. I know there's a lot of work in it. When they first started, I was sitting in the meetings, and we did some synergizing, and one of the things that attracted me to it was how they were going to give back to the community, or the people that actually were collecting. So hopefully that hasn't gone away. If each one of these groups become a mini visitor center or an extension of the visitor center and work with the visitor center, then we can have that much more coverage for our tourism, because tourism is our main industry right now, and we need to foster that. There are some issues.
30 seconds.
There are some issues. We have 8 bed and breakfasts, so there's some issues around taxing those people correctly. I can tell you that because they also have food, and they should have some consideration for that. I am a little concerned about the collection and distribution. I hope that it doesn't cost too much money, because the more people that get their fingers into it, the less gets the actual to go where it needs to go.
Good job.
Is that right on?
Right on.
I'll say this, that when this first came up, and this came up when Mr. Walensky brought it up during our budget hearings, I think a year and a half ago or so, I thought it was a good idea. I thought, well, they were going to take and increase it to 10% and take that 4% and distribute it amongst some organizations. And I thought, okay, well, it sounds like a pretty noble idea. I'll wait and see what comes of it, what actually is going to be out there, because they were going to put it on the ballot, and let's see what they come up with. But sometime during that course between then and now, it's morphed into, well, let's take the whole 10% and let's just divide it how we want to take it and divide the whole 10%, and let's just fund these places that, in my opinion, and I'm on the Friends of the Library Board, as I mentioned earlier. We're going to fund the Friends of the Library. And by the way, none of these organizations, only one, the Sheriff's Department, is under the umbrella of government itself. None of these other organizations do you have any accountability to. There's no elected officials on those boards. None of them are elected. None of those boards have any hold any elections for the people to elect those boards. So you're going to give tax money to these boards without any accountability. Right now you have accountability to the Visitors Bureau because it's allocated from the Board of Supervisors, and the people have some control. If you start giving this money out to these people that don't have any, you have no way of electing anybody to those boards, you've lost your control. They can do what they want with those funds, and you can't say anything to them about it because you can't replace them. They replace themselves. But we're going to give 40 cents to the Visitors Bureau, and why not give 20% to the Visitors Bureau and 40% to the Sheriff's Office? That's what I would do. I would give 40% to the Sheriff's Department. Everybody agrees they need more sheriff's officers. We need more law enforcement out there. They need more funding. Well, here's a mechanism that you're talking about, and it's under the guise of the people. You have control over it. You want to give to the Calaveras Humane Society. Why don't you just give it to the animal shelter and a designated fund meant for the animal shelter, nothing else? Why don't you give it, you want to give it to the Friends of the Library. Why don't you just give it to the library? Why not just allocate it to the library? Friends of the Library is set up to do just that. So why are we going through a non-governmental organization to do that? I saw this and I jumped from the 4% to the 10%, and I can't support it. I could support it if we were going to put all these together, and we were going to allocate the 4%, and we were going to put these people on as elected people, so the people themselves have some way of having a say in how those funds are being allocated. The way it is now, a certain group of people you have empowered to see how they want these funds. And 10 years from now, 20 years from now, our president at Friends is not going to be there. Our vice president's not going to be there. It's going to be a different board. Pretty soon they're driving new cars or whatever because they decided that's what they want to do. I mean, there's no control.
Thank you, Tom.
Thanks. Thank you, all the candidates, and thank you to the audience for being respectful. All those questions and more will be answered in the near future.
Hey, Steve, can I make a comment? I was just passed a note, and it says, can you please clarify that the Resource Connection and the Child Care Council are not listed, are not participating in the transient occupancy tax
Correct.
issue? Okay?
And thank you to the panel for our questions, and especially Pat McGreevy, who's been an unbelievable hard worker on the Citizens for Better Calaveras. Good night. Drive safely, but before you do, let's continue the conversation outside these chambers. Good night.